Hi boys and girls, I'm here this afternoon to share a math lesson with you, and today I would like for us or you to learn how to divide a whole into halves, fourths, and eighths, and we're also going to talk about how to compare those different pieces. You're going to learn how to write fractions using fraction notation. In your packet, you should have found a piece of paper that looks like this. It has 3 circles on it. And what I'd like for you to do first today for me is that I would like for you to cut out each one of those circles. So go ahead and do that. And I'm going to do it right along with you. And then we're going to use the 3 circles to talk about wholes and halves and fourths and eighths and fractions. So cut your different circles out carefully and then just lay them down in front of you. Just take a couple minutes to do this. Make sure you cut them nicely so that your circles look as much like the circle on the paper as they can. Okay, there's that one. And then I'm going to do one more so that I have 3 circles. Okay, if you're not, I'm going to go ahead and go on with my lesson. If you're not quite finished cutting out your 3 circles, then you can pause me for a minute and then join back up again when you're ready. Okay, each circle, we're going to pretend that these are pies. Any kind of pie you want it to be, whatever your favorite kind is. My favorite kind is cherry pie. So I'm going to pretend that these are cherry pies. And we say that each circle or each is one whole pie. Okay? So first of all, let's pretend that you and your friend, one of your friends, are going to share a pie. Okay? So I want you to take one of your circles and I want you to fold one of your circles in half to show how much pie each of you will have. And to fold it in half, see just what I did. Fold one pie in half because you are going to share that between you and one friend. So, how many equal pieces do you have? If you said 2 equal pieces, you are correct. Okay? How do you think we could make sure that these 2 pieces are the same size? Because if we're talking about fractions and parts of things, we want to make sure that our parts are equal. So we need to figure out a way to make sure that these parts are equal. Does anybody have any idea? Well, here's what we can do. We can check to make sure that our parts are equal by folding back up on the crease again and making sure that around the edges right here, everything is meeting up. Okay? We wouldn't want part of it to overlap like that. Okay, because then we would know that our parts are not equal. And in order to talk about fractions, one of the most important things that you have to remember is that your parts have to be equal. Okay, so if we want to make sure our parts are equal, then we're going to make sure that everything is lined up when we fold our circles. Okay, so you have 2 equal pieces, and we know that they're equal because everything matches up on top. And now we need to decide what we are going to call each piece. What do you think we will call each piece if we have 2 equal pieces? Did you say 1/2? If you said 1/2, you are correct. Now, you're going to need to take a pencil because I'm going to show you how to write the fraction 1/2 correctly. When we write the fraction that says 1/2, we are going to write it like this. We are going to write a 1, and then we're going to write a line that looks like this. This line is called a fraction bar. Okay, so we have a 1 on top, then we have our line called our fraction bar, and then the bottom number in this case is going to be a 2. Okay, so this is the correct way to write the fraction 1/2. Okay, so the number on top in the fraction is going to tell how many pieces, okay, and the number on the bottom is going to tell, the number on top is going to tell us how many pieces we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about one part or one piece that we're going to share with a friend. The number on the bottom is going to tell us how many pieces we have all together. So in this case, we're going to share one part with our friend. And let me move this down a little bit so you can see. I didn't notice. There we go. There's my fraction 1/2. Okay, so the number on top, how many pieces we're going to share with a friend. In this case, we're going to share 1. And then we have 2 pieces all together. And mathematicians have special names for these numbers and fractions. The top number is called the numerator. That's what mathematicians call the top number in a fraction. It is called the numerator. And the bottom number in a fraction is called the denominator. Okay, and I always had a special way of remembering when I was growing up what we call that bottom number. We call it the denominator, and I always remember denominator because it's down. It's like the number that's down below the top number. So the denominator is the number on the bottom. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you to write the fraction 1/2 on each of your halves. So I already have it written on this half. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write my 1 because that's my part. And then I'm going to write my fraction bar. And then I'm going to write the 2 because that's how many equal parts I have all together. So make sure you have the fraction 1/2 written on each part of this pie. Okay, now we're going to set that pie over to the side a minute. And we are going to bring in another one. And this time I would like for you to fold this pie in half again. So we're going to fold it in half. And we're going to make sure that when we fold, we don't have a lot of extra hanging over on one side or the other, so we know that our halves are the same size, equal pieces. Okay. Now we're going to fold this in half again. Okay, so it looks like this. Okay, and then we are going to open it up and count the pieces. Okay, how many equal pieces do you have? Okay, I count 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 equal pieces to our pie this time. So what do you think we're going to call each one of those pieces? Okay, you are right. We are going to call each piece 1/4. And how many fourths are there in a whole? Because remember, this is a whole. So how many fourths are there in a whole? You're right, there are 4/4. So 4/4 are the same as 1 whole. Okay, and we're going to call each piece 1/4. Now, when we wrote 1/2, we used a 1, if you remember. Here it is again. We used a 1, and then we used our fraction bar, and then we used a 2 because there are 2 equal pieces. Okay, how do you think we are going to write the fraction 1/4? Okay, you probably were able to answer that question. We are going to write a 1 because it's one part. And then we are going to write the fraction bar. And then we are going to write a 4 this time because instead of having 2 equal parts like we had in 1/2, we have 4 equal parts. Oh, something happened to my light. hold on a minute. There we go. Oh, hold on. Okay, so this is how our fraction 1/4 looks. All right, so we have, again, a 1 at the top because this is one part, and then we have our fraction bar, and then we have our number 4 because there are 4 parts all together. Okay, now remember, the number on top is called the numerator. Big word, I know. Say it after me. It's called the numerator. The bottom number that tells how many pieces altogether is called the denominator. You're exactly right. So now that we know how to write 1/4, let's go ahead and write it on each one of the parts in our circle. So my 1, my fraction bar, my 4. My 1, my fraction bar, my 4. My 1, my fraction bar, my 4. Okay, so we have all of our parts labeled as 1/4. All right, now we're going to put that circle or that whole pie to the side again, and we're going to get our last circle out. Okay, this time with the last circle, we're going to do just what we did before. I want you to fold it in half. Okay, and remember, we know that our pieces are equal because our fold is lined up. It might not be exactly because of when we cut, but we don't have a whole lot hanging over on one side or another. It's fairly as close to equal as we can get it to be. Okay, so we're going to fold it in half, and then we're going to fold it in half again. And how many pieces did we have when we folded it like this before? How many equal pieces? Does anybody remember? We had 4. You're exactly right. We had 4 equal pieces. Now, from here, we are going to fold it in half again. So that what you have when you are finished is a piece that looks like this. Now, does anybody have any idea how many pieces we will have when we open up this paper? Any ideas? Okay, if you said 8, you just might be correct because we're going to open it up and see. So let's go ahead and open up the circle. Okay, and we are going to count the pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You are exactly right if you thought that there were going to be 8 equal pieces in this circle. Good job. Now, let's go back to this. We had 4 equal pieces in our 1/4. Okay, so if we have 8 equal pieces, what do you think each piece will be called? Did you say 1/8? If you said 1/8, you are exactly right. If we have 8 equal pieces, each one is called 1/8. Now, how do we write the fraction 1/8? Well, let's think about how we wrote 1/4 and how we wrote 1/2. Okay, we have one part, so our number on top is going to be 1. Okay, then we always have to have our fraction bar. Okay, this time we have 8 equal pieces, so they're each called eighths. So in this case, our bottom number is going to be an 8. And this is the fraction that says 1/8. Okay, we're talking about one part here, and we're talking about 8 parts altogether. Numerator, denominator. So let's go ahead and write the fraction 1/8 on each of the parts of this circle. And so it takes how many 8s do you think to make one whole circle? Can you tell from looking at this? If you said that it takes 8 8s to make one whole circle, you are exactly right. It takes 8 8s to make one whole circle. Okay, now we are going to use our fraction pieces to show fractional parts of a whole. So, and we're also going to use them to compare fractions. So what I want you to do now is you're going to need to take your scissors again. Everything should be labeled on all of your 3 circles. So you're going to take your scissors again and you are going to cut out, carefully cut each of the circles along the folded lines. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start with my 1/2 and I'm going to cut it out. And then I'm going to go to my circle where I divided into 4ths, and I'm going to very carefully, this is the part where you really need to try and cut on those lines the best that you can. We want our pieces to be equal, because remember, that is very important when we're talking about fractions. We can't have fractions if our parts are not equal. Okay, so then I'm going to set my 4ths aside, and now I'm going to cut out my 8ths, cutting on the fold. Okay, just like so. Sometimes I have to move this around so you can see it better, but I'm hoping that you can tell what I'm doing. There's my 8ths, and I've cut out 2 of them already. So I'm going to continue and cut out all my 8ths. So you cut them out right along with me. Okay, so I have all my pieces and parts cut out. And they're all kind of in a little group right here. First thing I want you to do is I want you to sort your pieces by size. So that means I'm going to take all the ones that are the same size and I'm going to put them together in their own little group. Okay. I don't know if you can see. Let me see. There we go. There we go. I've got mine all right here. I've got mine sorted into their groups. Okay. Then I want you to put your pieces together and I want you to make 3 whole pies. Okay, so I'm going to take these 2 pieces and I'm going to put them together to make a complete pie. Okay, then I'm going to take my next group of pieces, my 4ths, and I'm going to put them together. It's kind of like a puzzle. You made your own little puzzles here, and now we're putting them back together. Okay, so there's that circle, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Just a little bit trickier because there's more pieces to it, to make this complete pie. Okay, so you should have all of yours on there just like that. Okay, now, a couple questions for you, kind of towards the end of our lesson here about fractions and comparing and writing, being able to write fractions. How many halves did you use to make a whole pie? Okay, well, I come over here to my halves. Okay, how many halves did I use? I can clearly see from my pie right here that I used 2 halves to make a whole pie. Okay, how many 4ths did we use then? If we used 2 halves to make a pie, then how many 4ths did we use? Well, I can come over here to my 4ths and I can see that we used 1, 2, 3, 4 4ths to make a whole pie. And how many 8ths did we use to make a whole pie? Well, if we use 2 halves to make a whole pie, and we use 4 eighths to make a whole pie, then I would say, or 4 fourths, sorry, to make a whole pie, then I would say that we probably used 8 eighths to make a whole pie. And if you thought that and you said that with me, then you are exactly right. So 2 halves make a whole pie, 4 fourths make a whole pie, and 8 eighths make a whole pie. All right, now look at all of your pieces in front of you, and I want you to hold up the piece that is the largest of all the different pieces that you cut out. Which one is the largest? Okay, I hope you held up this one. Okay, because if you did, you are right. Okay. If you held up this one, you are right. And this is 1/2. Okay, so it is the largest of the three choices that you had. You had your choice between 1/2, 1/4, or 1/8. And 1/2 is the largest of those three fractions. Okay, now, if 1/2 is the largest, then which one is the smallest? Okay, let's see. I'm just going to look right here, and I automatically see that this is the smallest part. Okay, and it is the 1/8 part. Okay, so 1/8 is the smallest part. Look at if I compare 1/8 to 1/2. Definitely smaller than 1/2, right? Come over here, compare it to 1/4. Definitely smaller than 1/4. So 1/8 is the smallest of the three different fractional parts that we have from our pies. Okay. So which is more? 1/4 or 1/8? Okay, if you had a cookie and you love cookies, it's your favorite kind of cookie in the whole wide world. I don't know. I love chocolate chip. So I'm going to say it's chocolate chip fresh out of the oven, warm. The chips are melting. And I'm going to share this with some other friends of mine, but I really, really love chocolate chip. Like I said, melting in my mouth. Do you think that I would rather have 1/4 of my cookie or 1/8 of my cookie? I really want it. I want the larger part. Which one do you think that I will choose? Do you think it will be 1/4 of the cookie or do you think it will be 1/8 of the cookie? Well, if you said 1/4, you are correct. You know how much Mrs. Greenwell loves her chocolate. So, well, I would rather have 1/4 of the cookie because you can easily see that 1/4 is larger than 1/8. Okay, I can put 1/8 just like I did a few minutes ago. I can put that right on top. Let me move these other pieces away and show you. I can put 1/8 right on top of 1/4 and see that it is smaller. It's obviously smaller, so if I'm going to choose the piece, and being the chocolate lover that I am, I'm going to choose the larger piece, and that's obviously going to be 1/4. So, the fractional part 1/4 is larger than the fractional part 1/8. Okay, now we're finished with our math lesson for today. So if you would like to you can put your fractional pieces away for now. And if you look at in your package, you will find 2 papers that will give you some more practice working with fractions and comparing fractions and writing fractions. So that is all for our lesson today, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I hope you learned a lot about fractions. And I look forward to seeing you when we get back to school. This is Mrs. Greenwell, if I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. And enjoy the rest of your time off, and I will see you when we get back to school. Thanks.